I know the history of the house. My grandfather built it in 1928. He was a professor here, originally in English department, and then he moved to engineering department. And he built the house after they were married. Actually, the original house was the garage in back, and they lived there for a few years before they built the house itself.
His father was born in the in that house.
The garage.
So, in the garage.
Yeah. So when I told my mother that I was interested in living in that particular house on the street, she was definitely very interested. And she shared that when she was a student here in the 1970s, that she had spent a summer living there. So that was another neat connection, just family connection there. And she also shared how it typically has house students. The house has been typically for students over the years.
When we were students, the street was here then, and it was much like it is today, the residential area, not as surrounded, but pretty much surrounded by the university. And we met here at the university and used to walk up McIntyre Street, and we would say, oh, wouldn't it be nice if someday we would come back and teach at Valpo and we could live on McIntyre Court. We thought that was a joke, and it was not a joke. We came back in 1980, well, he came in 79, and when the house became available, we were able to purchase it immediately.
My first memory of the house actually is when I was a student at VU, and I would run. These sidewalks would be kind of crooked, and I would always kind of curse the person who lived in this house. I thought it was ironic that it turned out that I find out that I'm living here. I thought that was funny, how things work out.
As with any tight-knit community, the neighbors of McIntyre Court take pride not only in their street, but in each person living there.
I think the students were gratified to see the response to the project. How many times do you as a student do some work for a class and then have 100 people show up to hear you talk about it? People that are not necessarily students or professors, but people from the community who really care.
People really use each other's yards, walk through each other's yards. You know, if someone's out in their backyard, you know, having a beer, other people are going to stop by, and it's a very friendly community, especially with the people who have lived there for a long time.
I really have gotten to know the Laymon's well, just because they are my landlords and next door neighbors, and so I see them out and about. I see them at least once a month when I go to pay rent. And overall, it's been a really good relationship that we've been able to strike up. They definitely know a lot about the university, and they've been really involved in the university for a long time, so they have a lot of cool stories to tell.
It was closer originally because the neighbors had all been here for a long time, and everyone knew everyone else. Even though when we were the new ones here, you got to know each other pretty well. And we used to have block parties every few years, and even now it's still friendly, but since the university has bought up so many of the houses, it's become much more a transient neighborhood. People come in for a year or two and you barely see them a few times and then they're gone.
Although McIntyre Court holds such a great depth of social and historical value, lately tensions have risen between Valparaiso University and the residents after the release of VU's projected future plan.
We all first heard about it in the front page of the paper one day. They just announced it. This was their 20-year plan, and it had all the houses gone, parking lots and fields and whatnot.
VU says that they are waiting for homeowners to move out of the homes before they purchase the homes and then either demolish the homes or turn them into VU rentals. But a lot of the homeowners have expressed that they felt pressure from the university to move out so that the university can develop that land in the future for other athletic fields, other academic buildings.
So there's some tension between those who continue to sell to the university and those who desperately don't want the university to own any more property on the street, and that's understandable.
Well, we'd like to have been the way it was, a stable neighborhood. I don't think we have any say in it, other than our house. I think their ring road is supposed to go through this house, so that could happen next year for all we know. So everything they do so far at the university, it's changing the character of the neighborhood. It's altered it already, and obviously they're going to alter it some more. So.
Even though VU sees this as an opportunity to expand its growing campus, they may be ignoring how McIntyre affects their students.
In college, you can be very isolated from age groups other than your own. And there's a kind of comfort to walking down a street that reminds you of the town where you grew up or other places that you've been.
Part of the motivation for, especially what's in front, is to try and have basically a garden away from, things that physical plant mows. You've got a much more restful and civilized place to go by.
I think it's definitely a great link to the university's past and to the city's past. There's definitely a lot of tradition on the street, not only in the architecture, but in the folks who have lived there, and just kind of the role that I think it has played in terms of housing faculty throughout the years. Now it houses a lot of international scholars who are visiting. So just that connection right there, I think it's a very worthwhile and valuable one.
Well, I think right now it's kind of an untapped resource. I think it would be a great way for Valpo to start connecting with the community because I think right now we're kind of in our own little university bubble. But I had a great time talking to the residents over there, and I think that they have a lot to offer here, and they definitely participate in things on campus, so it might be interesting in the future to kind of mix students with the residents over there.
A lot of them have become very involved in campus over the years. Some of them are retired professors even, but just to see students walk by to class or on their way to basketball games or anything like that, that the residents do feel that they are a huge part of campus and that they're very involved in campus life. So I think they would, that's why a lot of them have stayed as long as they have.
We need to value this neighborhood and see what it's done for campus before we just summarily discard it and move on to other things.
Removing this long-rooted community from campus could also cost the university much more than merely losing a street.
Having known McIntyre Court when I was a student and a lot of years while living here, what I see is a very short-sighted view of what education ought to be as opposed to what is financially efficient. Ignoring the facet of an education which is what happens outside the classroom. The move toward anonymous online education, faceless online education. And so I think it's a short-changing of future students' education.
It would sadden me to see Valparaiso become a campus like Notre Dame. That's an island of campus that's detached from neighborhoods, from the city. We're just far enough away from the downtown that students don't spend a lot of time down there.
Whichever side of the argument you fall on, it's important to realize that McIntyre Court is not only a bunch of houses and a street. It's a historical reminder of Valparaiso's past, a living community of long-term neighbors, and a very special, unique aspect of our campus.